I welcome you on my channel, Popular Opinion. Today in this video I will try to explain important takeaways from Israel-Iran conflict. It was a short but brutal conflict. Iran has expressed its willingness to return to negotiations in pursuit of a deal aimed at promoting the prosperity of its people, demonstrating its intent to act as a responsible member of the international community. It has reiterated its commitment to maintaining its uranium enrichment program under the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. However, Iran's cooperative stance has faced resistance, particularly from the United States, influenced by Israeli lobbying to advance its strategic objectives. This situation raises questions about the fairness of the international order, often portrayed by Western nations as based on universal principles. A critical question remains: why is Iran, a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, restricted from utilizing nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, while Israel, despite not being an NPT signatory, faces no such constraints regarding its nuclear arsenal? Such discrepancies point to a clear double standard in the global nuclear governance framework. Before delving further into the matter, it is essential to underscore several key points. First, the military actions undertaken by Israel and the United States against a sovereign nation are in clear violation of international law, particularly Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter and UN General Assembly Resolution 3314. Furthermore, the concept of preventive or anticipatory self-defense in response to hypothetical future threats such as potential nuclear proliferation or terrorism has not been recognized under international law since the adoption of the UN Charter more than 8 decades ago. Second, the repeated assertions by certain European governments and the European Union claiming that Israel possesses an inherent right to self-defense are not only misleading but can also be described as profoundly duplicitous, given the context and circumstances. Third, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, under the current leadership of Director General Rafael Grossi of Argentina, has, in the eyes of many observers, acted more as a politically motivated entity than a neutral technical body, particularly in its approach to Iran's nuclear file. Fourth, the recent escalation must also be seen in light of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's long-standing campaign against Iran. Since as early as 1992, he has repeatedly, on at least 7 occasions, claimed that Iran was only weeks or months away from acquiring nuclear weapons. These predictions have consistently proven to be unfounded, further raising questions about the motives behind such alarmist rhetoric. Mossad-led sabotage cleared air defenses and missile sites ahead of the aerial assault, revealing a new model of hybrid warfare combining espionage, drones, and precision strike. Other points which we can conclude from the conflict are: first, pattern of recent conflict tells us wars are increasingly fought via cyber, air, missiles, drones and proxy networks rather using tanks and infantry battalions. Second, Israel justified its attack as preemptive self-defense, while Iran responded with proportionate retaliation, but neither declared formal war. Which tells us modern conflict is designed to maximize impact, minimize accountability. Third, media outlets were weaponized to shape international perception in real time. Iran mobilized public support using martyr funerals and anti-Israel rhetoric. Israel focused on precision propaganda, leaking satellite images, claiming surgical operations, and dominating the narrative of deterrence. Fourth, smaller states may pursue nuclear deterrence faster, fearing diplomacy as a facade for targeted strikes. 50. Israel was able to establish air supremacy over Iran, resultantly engaged objectives from its target bank with impunity. Therefore, Iran needs to revise its military doctrine and to pursue force modernization plan by acquiring state-of-the-art fighter jets and air defense systems. Sixth, Israel was able to deter Iran's most powerful and dangerous proxy, Hezbollah, stood on the sidelines. Seventh, Israel has successfully reduced/eliminated the strength and potency of Iran's proxies in its immediate circle, such as Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Fall of Assad's regime in Syria disrupted the secured supply route Iran-Iraq-Syria-Lebanon, resultantly damaged the effectiveness of axis of resistance capabilities. Eighth, Israel assassinated the military generals to weaken their military readiness and national prestige. It also launched propaganda campaign through exiled Reza Pahlavi to trigger uprising against the regime, but it has very much achieved the opposite. Rather, active assassination rallied the people close to the government. 9th, Israel launched Operation Narnia to assassinate multiple Iranian nuclear scientists as a demonstration of Israel's intelligence prowess. 10th, Israel acted militarily even Iran was in negotiation with the US, Gulf states and European mediators, but Israel launched an unprovoked attack. The line between diplomacy and active combat is now blurred. 11th, US intelligence remains uncertain on the full extent of damage to Iran's nuclear infrastructure, the efficacy of strikes rated from moderate to severe but not decisive. 12th, former President Trump permitted Israel to launch attacks against Iran under the assumption that a strategy of decapitation and degradation would compel Iran to return to negotiations and ultimately accept his administration's original demand of ceasing uranium enrichment. However, this approach proved counterproductive, as Iran withdrew from diplomatic engagement, firmly stating that it would not participate in negotiations while under military aggression. 13th, Israel got Iran exactly where it wanted Iran: escalate or show restraint. Escalation would beget more pain, restraint would not offset attacks but show weakness. 14th, Iranian missile strikes were able, on multiple occasions, to breach Israel's air defense systems, resulting in significant damage to critical infrastructure. The impact was further exacerbated by Israel's limited geographic size, which intensified the consequences of each strike. The sustained attacks strained Israel's stockpile of interceptor missiles, with no immediate prospects for replenishment. Concurrently, the national economy experienced severe disruption, approaching a near standstill under the weight of the escalating conflict. 15th, from a diplomatic standpoint, the majority of nations around the world identified Israel as the aggressor, while acknowledging Iran's actions as a legitimate exercise of its right to self-defense. Although the United States and a handful of its Western allies extended their support to Israel, such unqualified backing has raised serious concerns among the international community. It is increasingly shaping global perceptions regarding the credibility of these countries' professed commitment to moral principles, ethical standards, and universal values, particularly among states that prioritize reasoned and balanced international conduct. 16th, a pertinent question arises in this context: has Israel succeeded in achieving its political and strategic objectives, or has this conflict merely sown the seeds for future unrest? Israel's apparent long-term objective of pursuing regime change in Iran would constitute an unlawful act under international law. Such an approach would not only destabilize Iran and constrain its future policy options but would also have far-reaching negative repercussions for the broader region, potentially undermining stability in neighboring countries.